For a long, long time, we've all been sold this one story about how change happens. You know the one. It's all about willpower, about some huge monumental effort, this brute force discipline. But what if I told you that story is just plain wrong? The reason so many of us struggle, the reason you might be struggling, it isn't a failure of your character. It's because the map you are given is flawed. Well, today, we're not just going to correct that map. We are handing you an entirely new blueprint for change, one that's actually grounded in the science of how we, as humans, really work. Now, this isn't just some clever line. It's a diagnosis of a hidden problem that affects almost everyone. We go through our lives thinking that the friction, the resistance, that constant battle we have with ourselves, we think that's just normal. But it's not. It's a symptom of a much deeper issue. We're all playing a game with systems that are basically rigged against us from the start. So, you see, the real enemy of our progress isn't laziness. No way. It's this invisible programming, this architecture of default behaviors and inherited beliefs that run our lives on complete autopilot. What we call bad habits aren't moral failings at all. They're just outdated solutions to problems that keep popping up, flawed strategies we probably picked up from the world around us. And this right here is the crucial point. Your struggle is a design problem, not a personal one. Think about it. A habit like reaching for a cigarette when you're stressed isn't a weakness. It's a solution. A deeply ingrained, even if it's not a great one, solution to the problem of stress. The moment you truly see that, everything changes. You stop being a victim of your own impulses, and you become the architect of your behavior. You're suddenly empowered to design better systems for living. And this brings us to the core revolution in this entire blueprint. It's a fundamental shift in how you look at everything. It's about moving away from this obsession with outcomes, the goals you want to achieve, and turning your focus towards something way more powerful, your identity, the very person you actually want to become. Just look at this slide. This is where the two paths split. On the left, I will read 30 books this year. That's a finish line. Once you cross it, what happens? The race is over. But on the right, I will become a reader. That is not a goal you can just check off a list. It's a state of being. It's a completely new standard for your life that's going to inform 1,000 tiny choices you make long after that 30th book is closed. And this quote just brilliantly explains how that identity is built. It's not in some single dramatic moment of transformation. Nope. It's in the quiet buildup of tiny, daily choices. When you decide to take the stairs instead of the elevator, you cast a vote for being an active person. These aren't small acts. They are ballots, and you're casting them in the election of your future self. Okay, so if our actions are votes, how do we rig the election in our favor? Right? We need an operating system, a set of real engineering principles to build the habits that cast the right votes automatically. And that's exactly what these are, the 4 laws of behavior change. So, to build a habit that actually sticks, we have to engineer it right into our lives. First, you make the cue for the habit totally obvious, impossible to miss. Then, you make the idea of doing it irresistible. After that, you lower the barrier to entry so much that it's actually easier to do it than not to. And finally, you give your brain an immediate reward, a little taste of success, to make sure it wants to come back for more. And to break a bad habit? Well, you just flip the laws on their head. You invert them. Just like any powerful tool, they can be used for creation or for deconstruction. You make the trigger invisible. You strip away its appeal. You add friction, layers of it, to make the action a total chore. And you engineer an immediate cost, making the consequence painful instead of pleasurable. Now, what's really fascinating here is that while you can apply these laws pretty much anywhere, there are 2 specific battlegrounds where their impact is just magnified like crazy. If you can control your physical space and you can master the first 2 minutes of any action, you've pretty much already won 90% of the war. I want you to think of your environment as an invisible force, kind of like gravity, that's constantly pulling you in certain directions. You don't consciously fight gravity, right? You flow along its path of least resistance. The most disciplined people on this planet are not heroes of willpower. They are masters of architecture. They design environments where the things they want to do are the most effortless choice. And this is what that environmental design looks like in real life. You put the guitar out in the open, it invites you to play. You lay out your running clothes the night before, it creates a frictionless path right to the front door. You leave your phone in another room until lunch, it adds just enough resistance to break that spell of mindless scrolling. You are literally curating your world to make good choices almost inevitable. So that's the first arena. The second is the ignition point, the start. The 2-minute rule says that any ambition, no matter how big, can be scaled down to a 2-minute ritual. Your goal isn't to write a novel, it's to write one sentence. There's this great story of a man who was coached to build a gym habit by going every single day, but he wasn't allowed to stay for longer than 5 minutes. He wasn't building muscle yet, he was mastering the critical, absolutely decisive art of just showing up. But look, no system is perfect. Why? Because life isn't perfect. There are going to be bad days, there will be disruptions, there will be failure. And that is why the final piece of this blueprint isn't about trying to avoid failure, but about having a protocol, a plan, for when it inevitably shows up. This is the rule. It's the cardinal rule for anyone who's playing the long game. Missing one workout, that's an accident. It happens to everybody. But missing a second workout in a row, that is not an accident. That is the birth of a brand new destructive habit. That's the exact moment the downward spiral begins. This right here is the true dividing line. Success in anything isn't defined by having a perfect, flawless record. It's defined by how fast you can hit the reset button. The top performers out there, they stumble just like everyone else. The difference is they don't allow one mistake to cascade into a whole month of them. They recover, and they do it immediately. And so that brings us right back to the beginning. Change isn't some singular event you're striving for tomorrow. It is a constant process of becoming, and it's powered by the thousands of tiny votes you cast today. The system is right here, the blueprint is in your hands. So the only question left is the one on your screen. With your very next action, who will you vote to become?